I've been licensed long enough that my instincts usually arrive before my thoughts do. And the night this happened, my instincts showed up so fast I actually ignored them. Because the alternative was admitting something I didn't want to be true. Here's what people don't understand about funeral homes. The dead are never really alone. Not in the way people imagine. Every step, every transfer, every signature, every door code creates a trail that is supposed to make one thing impossible. A family can't just walk in and do whatever they want. A stranger can't just show up and take control. A body, can't just become negotiable. But that's exactly what happened. And the worst part, the part that still wakes me up, is this. Nobody broke in, nobody kicked a door, nobody smashed glass, no alarms screamed, no dramatic chase. They sat in my arrangement office, looked me in the eye, and asked me to break the law like it was a minor preference. Then they proved they already knew where my back entrance was. They knew my schedule. They knew which camera mattered and which one didn't. And by the time I realized what they were really planning, I was standing in my own lobby with a phone in one hand, a silent panic button under my desk, and the understanding that I was one yes away from becoming part of something I could never explain. When you run a funeral home day to day, you learn the difference between grief and performance. When you run a funeral home day to day, you learn the difference between grief and performance. You learn what real shock looks like: the hollow stare, the trembling hands, the way people keep repeating the same sentence because their brain can't accept the new reality. You also learn what it looks like when someone is using grief as a costume. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's denial, sometimes it's family drama, but sometimes it's something else entirely. I'm not an embalmer, I'm a funeral director. My job is the living side of death: authorizations, permits, arrangements, logistics, coordination with cemeteries and clergy, the family's needs, the county's requirements, the stuff nobody thinks about until it's too late. I'm the person who makes sure everything happens legally, on time, and with dignity. That's why what happened still sits in my chest like a stone. Because the family didn't ask me to do something different. They asked me to do something illegal, softly, politely, like they were requesting a different casket lining. And the longer I said no, the more I realized the funeral wasn't the point. It was the cover. The first meeting was a rainy Tuesday late afternoon, that gray hour where the lobby lights look warmer than they should. The front door chimed, and in came a group, 4, maybe 5, moving together, not in the staggered, unsteady way most families move. They walked like a unit. No one cried. No one looked lost. They looked alert. The person who spoke carried himself like the spokesperson. Not necessarily the oldest, but the one with authority. He didn't sit until I sat. He took the chair facing the hallway. Another stood near the door, hands folded, watching the glass like he expected company. Someone else kept a phone in their palm, screen down, thumb tapping the edge in a steady rhythm. I offered water. Nobody took it. I began the way I always do. Condolences, confirm the loss, ask how I can help. I asked for the basics: legal name, date of birth, place of death, next of kin. The spokesperson answered without hesitation, like he'd rehearsed the information. Then he said, "We want this quiet. Quiet funerals aren't unusual. Some people request no obituary. Some families don't want extended visitation. Some people are private. Some deaths carry stigma." I nodded and asked what quiet meant to them. "No obituary," he said. "No public notice, no service that draws attention. Closed casket, immediate family only." Still not illegal. Uncommon, but not illegal. I asked about timing, whether they wanted a viewing for immediate family. He shook his head. No viewing, he said. Then he added, no one sees him. That second sentence had weight. It wasn't grief. It was control. I didn't react. I've learned that the best way to keep a situation from escalating is to keep your face steady and your questions neutral. All right, I said. We can accommodate a closed casket and private arrangements. I'll need to confirm who has legal authority to make these decisions. The spokesperson's eyes flicked to the others for a fraction of a second, then back to me. We have authority, he said. I'll still need documentation, I replied. Next of kin authorization forms, and we'll need the death certificate process started. He waved a hand slightly, dismissive. We'll handle paperwork, he said. That's not how it works. Families don't handle paperwork unless they mean something specific, like they already have a legal representative or the death is under medical examiner jurisdiction and forms are pending. But the way he said it was too smooth. I smiled politely. We'll guide you through everything required, I said. The filing goes through us. It protects you as much as it protects us. He leaned forward like he was making a reasonable request. We just don't want delays, he said. No questions, no extra steps. My pen paused. Questions and extra steps are how the law keeps people from disappearing into paperwork. I redirected. I asked about the deceased's clothing, jewelry, personal effects. I asked if there were cultural or religious practices they wanted observed. The spokesperson shook his head again. Keep it simple, he said. Keep it sealed. I explained what sealed means in our world. The casket can remain closed, but we still must identify the deceased, complete permits, and follow state regulations. I said it calmly, the way you explain gravity. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked casually, How late do you keep staff here? Varies, I said. We have on-call coverage overnight. And cameras? He asked. Cameras, I repeated, because that question doesn't belong in arrangements. For security, he said. You have them? We do, I said, keeping my tone even. We also have alarm systems and controlled access. He nodded like he was checking a list. Back entrance monitored too? He asked. It's alarmed, I said. He smiled, just slightly. Good. Then he placed an envelope on my desk. We'd like to pay today, he said. I opened it enough to see stacks of cash. Neat, clean, the kind that looks like it came from a bank and not someone's sock drawer. We take card, check, or cash, I said, because that part wasn't illegal. We usually do a deposit today and finalize later. Everything, he said. All of it. I counted it in front of him because that's what you do with cash payments, especially large ones. I wrote a receipt. I documented it. I asked for a billing name. He gave me one that matched the authorization relationship he'd claimed. On paper, it looked normal. In my gut, it didn't. As they stood to leave, he paused at my door and said, We appreciate discretion. I nodded. That's part of the job. He held my gaze. We chose you because we heard you're professional. Then they left without lingering, their footsteps steady, their coats barely dripping on the mat. When the door chimed behind them, the office felt warmer for a second, like the building exhaled. I sat alone in that small arrangement room and stared at the envelope receipt. I told myself not to be dramatic. People grieve differently. Some families are cold, some are guarded, some are private. But none of that explained the questions about cameras. The next day, the body was scheduled to arrive. Normally, transfers come from hospitals, nursing facilities, or the medical examiner's office. There's paperwork. There's a chain. There's a routine rhythm to it. I expected a standard removal vehicle, a pair of staff in gloves, the usual exchange of forms. Instead, that evening, after the front lobby was closed and the last staff member had left, my direct line rang. The voice on the other end was calm, almost bored. "Delivery in 10, the voice said. "Back bay." "From where?" I asked. A pause, not confusion, calculation. "Transferred," the voice said. "Everything's in order." I asked for the releasing facility name. The voice gave one that sounded plausible. Then the call ended. 10 minutes later, an unmarked dark van backed into the receiving bay. No logo, no company name, no standard markings, clean tires, no mud splatter from the rain. That detail shouldn't have mattered, but it did. Real removal vehicles pick up grime. They go through hospital docks and nursing facility lots. They don't look freshly detailed. 2 people stepped out. They didn't wear uniforms. They didn't wear gloves. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. They rolled a stretcher down the ramp. The body was in a sealed pouch. A clear sleeve held paperwork clipped on top. I met them with my clipboard. "I need your release forms," I said. One of them handed the paperwork without speaking. It looked right at a glance: case number, time, facility name. The formatting was close enough that most people would accept it. But I live in this world. I see these forms every week. The font was slightly off. The alignment was too perfect. The signature looked like a practice signature, not someone scribbling at the end of a shift. I asked, "Can I see your identification?" A laminated badge appeared. Photo, logo, ID number. It had the shine of a badge made at a copy shop. I kept my face neutral. "What's your role?" I asked. "Representative," the person said. "Private transfer." "Authorized by whom?" I asked. "The family," the person answered too quickly. "Who signed the authorization?" I asked. A pause. "Next of kin," the person said. I asked for the name. The person gave the same billing name the spokesperson had given me. The answer fit. That's what made it dangerous. I could have refused. I could have told them to wait while I called the facility. I could have demanded a second form of ID. But they were already here. The body was already at my bay door. The family had already paid and had already warned me about delays. So I did the thing I always do when uncertainty shows up. I tightened the procedure. I wrote down the van's make and color. I recorded the ID number on the badge. I had them sign our intake log. I asked them to write a phone number. They wrote a number in clean, perfect handwriting, with no hesitation. I watched their hand. No shake, no smudge, no human error. Then I took custody. I rolled the stretcher through the back corridor into the secure holding area. The refrigeration hum swallowed the outside world. I verified the tag, checked the seal, logged the time, and placed the body in a drawer. I locked the holding area. I checked the alarm panel. I made sure the exterior doors were secured. Then I went back to my office and sat down, and for the first time since they'd arrived, my hands trembled slightly. It wasn't fear of the dead. It was fear of the living who had delivered him. The next morning, the spokesperson called my direct number like we were discussing a delivery. "We're coming later," he said. "Just us." "What time?" I asked. He gave a window, not a time. Then he asked, "Nobody else will be there, right?" "Only staff," I said. A pause. "Keep it that way," he replied and ended the call. That afternoon, they showed up again. Same formation, same quiet authority, same eyes scanning the building. The spokesperson didn't waste time. "We need access tonight," he said. "To the chapel?" I asked, because that's the only place families can be after hours. And even then we schedule it. "To the holding area," he said. My stomach tightened. I kept my voice neutral. "Families don't have access to that area. It's secure." He nodded like he expected resistance. "We'll have staff present," he said. "That doesn't change policy," I replied. "Or the law." He smiled faintly. "We're not asking for permission. We're asking for cooperation." The words were polite. The meaning wasn't. "I can't do that," I said. He leaned forward and lowered his voice slightly, like he was sharing something confidential. "There's something with him we need," he said. "Personal effects are logged and returned through legal next of kin," I said. "If there's something missing from the facility, we can request it." "It's not logged," he said. I kept my face steady. "Then it isn't ours to retrieve." He stared at me for a long beat, then said, "It's inside." "Inside." The word turned the air heavy. In my world, inside immediately equals autopsy, medical examiner, legal jurisdiction, and a list of crimes I want no part of. "I can't help you," I said. He didn't get angry. He simply shifted like someone moving from plan A to plan B. He slid another envelope onto my desk, thicker than the first. "You're going to open the holding area tonight," he said. "You're going to step out, you're going to let us take what we need. Then you're going to lock everything back up." I didn't touch the envelope. "I'm not doing that," I said. He sighed, almost disappointed. "You're a professional," he said. "You understand consequences." I didn't respond. He gestured toward the window. Across the street, a vehicle sat with its lights off. "You have a routine," he said. "You have a home." My mouth went dry. He didn't say my address. He didn't need to. He had already made his point. Then he did something worse than threatening me directly. He recited my weekly schedule back to me, the days I arrived early, the days I stayed late, the days I left to pick something up. Not perfect, but close enough to prove surveillance. He leaned back, satisfied. "Tonight," he said, "back entrance. Keep it simple." Then they left. And the temperature in the room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. I called my supervisor. I explained it carefully. Unusual requests, implied threats, concerns about forced entry. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, "Are you sure you're not reading into grief?" "They're not grieving," I said. "They're negotiating." Another pause. "Don't call the police unless they actually break in," my supervisor said. "We don't need a scene." I stared at the wall. "They're coming tonight." "Have someone with you," he said. "Don't be alone." "We don't have someone," I replied. Silence. Then he said, "Lock the doors. If anything happens, call." When the call ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time at work: abandonment. That evening, I walked the building like a security guard. I checked every lock. I tested the alarm. I confirmed the cameras. I made sure exterior lights were working. I also moved the body, not out of the building, not illegally. I moved it deeper into the secure side of our holding unit, behind 2 doors, the one used when there are custody disputes or when we need extra protection. I documented the move: time, reason, signature. I updated the log. I left the usual drawer area looking normal. Then I waited in my office, with the lights low and the camera monitor on. At around 9, my phone buzzed. "We're outside." No name, no number saved, just a text. I didn't respond. A second text arrived. "Back door. Now." Then the back bay camera showed 2 figures moving into frame. One carried something long, wrapped in cloth. They didn't run. They walked with purpose. "This isn't about you," a voice said. Open the door. The door they meant wasn't the front. It wasn't the chapel. It was the second holding unit door, the one only staff uses. How did they know it existed? The spokesperson stepped into the lobby light, calm again, like the police drive-by had been a minor inconvenience. "You moved him," he said. "I secured him," I replied, and my own voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. He smiled faintly. "Same thing. Open it." "I can't," I said. "Police are aware." He tilted his head. "You think they'll protect you?" Behind him, 2 others moved into view. One held a tool wrapped in cloth. Another kept glancing at the windows. The spokesperson said, "We only need a minute. We take what we need, we leave, nobody gets hurt." "What you're asking is illegal?" I said. He shrugged slightly. So is what happens if we don't get it." Then he held up a phone and turned the screen toward me. It was a live feed of my front porch, my house, the camera angle from across the street. My breath caught. He watched my face. "Don't make it personal," he said softly. It already was. He lowered the phone. "Open the door." I felt my thoughts splinter. If I opened the door, I was complicit. If I didn't, I was gambling with my safety. And then, in the middle of that, the front desk phone rang. Loud, sharp, normal. It rang again. The spokesperson's eyes narrowed toward it. I picked up, shaking. "Funeral home," I said. An officer's voice came through. "We're returning. Stay on the line." The spokesperson heard the tone. His calm broke for the first time. He stepped forward, reaching toward the receiver. My hand moved before my brain finished deciding. I hit the panic button under the desk. "We have one. It's silent. It alerts a monitoring service that calls law enforcement with priority. We have it because funeral homes handle cash and medications and sit empty at night. I'd never pressed it in my career. The moment I pressed it, the spokesperson froze. He knew exactly what I'd done. His expression shifted from persuasion to anger. "You shouldn't have done that," he hissed. One of the others moved quickly toward the administrative corridor, like they were going to find another way into the holding unit. I stepped between them and the hallway without thinking. "Stop," I said. The spokesperson barked something low. The others hesitated. For a second, the whole scene balanced on a knife edge. 3 people who expected control suddenly realizing they didn't have it, and one funeral director trying not to die in his own lobby. Then sirens approached in the distance. Not one, multiple. The spokesperson's jaw tightened. He looked at me like he wanted to carve my face into memory. "Fine," he snapped. "We'll do it another way." He signaled the others and they moved, not in panic, but in practiced retreat. The side door alarm beeped. This time a real warning, then stopped abruptly. Footsteps vanished into the back corridors. A door opened and shut. Then the lobby was empty again. When the cruisers arrived, the building lit up with flashing blue and red through the windows, turning the polished wood and framed photos into something surreal. Officers entered with hands near their belts, voices firm. They asked where the intruders went. I told them. They cleared the building. The camera feed was still looped. The side corridor still frozen. One officer swore under his breath when he saw it. They took my statement in the lobby while others searched outside. They asked about the family, the cash, the threats, the request. I told them everything, including the part I didn't want to say out loud, that the family claimed something inside the body, and that they were desperate to get it before something official happened. An officer asked, "Why would they need it before an autopsy?" "I don't know," I said, "but that's what it felt like." They asked to see the deceased. I led them to the inner holding unit. My hands shook as I unlocked the first door, then the second. The drawer slid out. The sealed pouch lay there, tag visible. The officers read the tag. One of them stiffened slightly and stepped back. Then he asked me a question that made my stomach drop. "Are you sure this is who you think it is?" he said. "It's what the paperwork says," I replied. He exchanged a look with another officer, then said carefully, "There's an investigation connected to a death that matches this description. The name on the paperwork doesn't line up with what we're working." Cold spread through my chest. That was the final piece clicking into place. The family's obsession with quiet, the refusal of viewing, the insistence on no questions. They weren't trying to protect grief. They were trying to control identification. They were trying to control what the system could prove. The officers didn't tell me everything. They didn't have to. They treated my holding unit like a potential crime scene. They documented tags, seals, and paperwork. They photographed the forms I'd received. They took the badge number I'd written down. They asked me to describe the unmarked van again and again until my voice went hoarse. When dawn came, the body was no longer mine to protect. The authorities transferred custody with proper documentation, escorts, and forms thicker than my wrist. Everything was official now. The family didn't get a private service. They didn't get access. They didn't get whatever they thought they could retrieve. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt sick because when I replayed the timeline in my head, I saw the moment I could have stopped it earlier. When the first cash envelope hit my desk, when the questions about cameras began, when the unmarked van arrived with paperwork that was almost right, I tried to handle it like a professional. I tried to keep it smooth. I tried to keep the business safe from headlines. And in doing that, I had allowed criminals to treat my funeral home like a tool. People think the fear in this job comes from being alone around the dead. It doesn't. The dead are quiet. The dead don't negotiate. The dead don't threaten your house. The fear comes from the living who walk in and talk like they have the right to rewrite your rules. The next week, my supervisor told me I did the right thing. Eventually, Hajadi, he added like it was a joke. Eventually is a heavy word when the before could have gotten someone killed. I still run a funeral home. I still sit at that same desk. I still greet families with the same steady voice. But now when someone asks about cameras before they ask about flowers, I don't brush it off as anxiety. I hear the words inside. I see the frozen hallway feed. I remember the phone screen showing my porch. And I remind myself of something I wish I'd believed sooner. Not every family comes to say goodbye. Some come to erase something, and if you let them, they'll ask for illegal things the way other people ask for extra programs. Quietly, politely, as if the law is just another preference. The only difference is that when you say yes to them, you don't just lose your license. You lose the one promise this job is built on, that when someone is in your care, you protect them, even from the living.